Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about why Euphoria is super misogynistic, which I know is not groundbreaking, and you can probably find so many other videos talking about that, but I'm going to give my take on it using a book that I recently read, not all of it, but it's called Gore Capitalism. I don't have it with me right now, so I'm going to reference it later and include quotes, but one of the things that I find fascinating about this season is that it kind of like opens up in Tijuana, and it's like the city in like the borderlands region, like right beneath like the border in the California. And basically, I think one of the things I really hate about Sam Levinson, and this is gonna be a common theme throughout the video, is that he's not really interested in like furthering a discussion on these issues. Like he's merely interested in portraying them in a very like spectacularized, or I would say like commodifying way. For example, there's this graphic scene where like Rue for 2 years is a drug mule and she has to like swallow like fentanyl basically and like carry it across the border. And this is a real phenomenon and it's extremely unfortunate, but at the same time, like this is a very well-known fact that women's bodies are often are kind of commodified under neoliberalism, and they pay the price for the so-called war on drugs is highly, everybody knows this. You're not really like furthering the discussion by providing new insight or a new perspective or even a solution. Like you're kind of just portraying it for the sake of like, wow, like look at this really shocking, disturbing thing, and we're gonna have like really hot actresses show you this like social issue in a graphic way, and then he just like moves on to the next thing. He never like sits with it, and I think that's deeply exploitative and harmful. And also, one of the things, the opening scene, I think it's really cool how like Rue is like kind of running away in her truck, and there's this song that plays, I think it's called like Run Like the Wind, that I like. And it's very much about borderlands and how these are places, they're kind of like national sacrifice zones where like anything goes, and they're dangerous places, but also there's this like place of like mystique attached to it, and it's like the scenic beauty of the desert, but also it's an extremely like deadly space where just kind of anything goes. And it kind of reminds me of like that scene from Thelma and Louise where she's like there. If you've ever seen that movie, it's like also a feminist movie, and it also kind of takes place in that borderlands region. And however, I like Thelma and Louise because it has a feminist perspective and it actually comments on like domestic abuse and like female friendships, and it's a very liberating scene where these like two women are like running away in this car through the desert. It's very scenic and it's just like kind of wild. This, however, is just like he kind of uses this social issue of like migration and borderlands, and he doesn't comment on it in a meaningful way. He's just portraying it in all of its scenic beauty without extrapolating on why is this place in particular so contested within the national imaginary. And I just think that's very interesting. And one of the strippers, I think her name is Angel, she also has disappeared. And but before she goes missing, she comments on this. It's like there's something so eerie about this place. It's so beautiful, it's so majestic, but at the same time, it's like people just like disappear here. They just go missing for like no explainable reason, and it's just like it's haunted. And that is an extremely like apt observation, and it never gets explored further. Also, I should comment that I watched a lot of these episodes while high, so I don't remember them in detail, and I can't watch them completely sober because of how misogynistic it is through the male gaze. But when I watch it while high, it's like I can kind of allow myself to just ignore all of that and enjoy like his like cinematography and his style of filmmaking. What he should do, to be quite honest, is that he should just make like high production value like porn, because that's clearly what he wants to do, but he's trying to make he's trying to do a TV series instead, and it's super harmful. And the reason why I am going to be critiquing this show is because I think it actively contributes to like misogyny and gender-based violence. Like ideology isn't harmless in and of itself. Like ideology kills, and if you have a misogynistic worldview, you're more likely to have aggression towards women, and you're more likely to take out your frustration against women. And so I'm gonna explain why a lot of this show sucks. And for example, my abusive ex, who I've talked about on this channel, he described Euphoria, this show, as like, isn't this like Avengers for whores? And I was like, God, like that's exactly verbatim what he said. And I was just like, okay. But at the same time, these misogynistic men feel validated in their worldview and their hatred of women because of this show, because of how these women are portrayed and how sex work is not portrayed in a critical way. Like, I don't even think sex workers like how sex work is portrayed in Euphoria, even though it's like constant, it's rampant in the show. And so, for example, like Nate marries Cassie, and he gets into a lot of debt because he's trying to pay for this expensive wedding that she wants. Like I think she wanted like 50K worth of like floral arrangements for her wedding, and he doesn't have the money for it. And so he ends up owing a lot of dangerous people a lot of money, and then they end up torturing him. He loses his toe, but he's like willing to sacrifice everything so Cassie remains his wife to save their marriage. And he'll do anything to keep her. And they show him in this town hall, he's trying to like appeal to these people to like get permission to build, I believe it was like a nursing home or a retirement home in a property where there was like a certain species of flower that was endangered. So he didn't get the legal permission to build there in that plot of land. And he's begging these people. He's like looking at like these murals on the wall where it shows like kind of this, kind of like the American dream, and he's like really feeling it. It's like, you know, it's like manifest destiny. Like he feels like it is his calling and his destiny to build this lucrative retirement home on this plot of land. Like it is something he is entitled to have, and he needs this in order to save his marriage. And it's like Nate is somehow becomes a victim here, and Cassie becomes this like vindictive, like whore that doesn't appreciate his love and his sacrifice, and she just wants to make money off of her body, yada yada yada. And these men, misogynistic men, actually have that victim mentality of like, women are only out here to hurt me, they're only here to take advantage of me, like financially, emotionally, they're gonna abandon me, they're gonna cheat, like all this crazy shit. And so basically when you portray it like that, you're like directly feeding into that mindset, which does lead to gender-based violence. And that's why I think this show shouldn't be made, and Sam Levinson should just stop making TV shows and just stick to what he's good at, which is clearly making like cinematic porn. It's just so hard to watch. Like so many of the scenes are just like so hard to watch because you're like watching a lot of sexual assault, you're watching a lot of shit where it's like, this doesn't feel right, I feel gross after watching this. It's just not good. And the majority of this, that's like a side note, but the majority of porn that's like out there today is also like highly problematic and like racist and like all this shit. It's like really difficult to like, anyways, that's a whole other discussion for another day. But Sam Levinson is not interested in portraying like the complex reality of what it's like to be a sex worker and what that industry is like, especially with like OnlyFans. And I think another scene that's like important to talk about is that they have this brief scene where all of the friends from high school are kind of reunited. They're each on their different career path, life journey. For example, they're like all talking. There's no men in the room. So I guess it technically passes the, what is it called? The Bechdel test or whatever. And it's only women, and they're like discussing kind of what they're currently doing with their lives. And there's one girl, I forgot her name. She's kind of like the plain Jane of the group. She works for Hollywood. She's like an assistant, and she's the only one who doesn't work in sex work. And she's kind of like, you know, observing like what has happened to her high school friend group and kind of like admonishing them and being like, look at what y'all are doing to y'all selves. Like, this isn't okay. Like, you are trying, like, she points to what's her name, Zendaya's character, I think I totally forgot her name, was it Rue or something? I don't even know. But basically she points to Zendaya's character and she's just like, you're working for a dangerous group of men, you're trying to like sell drugs, you're like still doing what you were doing in high school, it's super problematic. And then this is in the middle while Cassie's like doing like an erotic photo shoot for her OnlyFans, and her friend like Maddie Perez or whatever is like, you know, trying to like get these like shots of her, and like Cassie has like wind blowing in her face, and it's just like a whole thing. And their friend in the corner is kind of just like commenting on their like various lifestyles and how she doesn't approve of what they're doing to make money. But then there's like something or other happens and the conversation or the discussion is like abruptly cut short. I'm not sure what it is, but basically that woman who was kind of like admonishing them and trying to like correct them or get them to see things differently, she was kind of like ignored for some reason or another. And the discussion never really, like, they don't have any genuine engagement with this topic, and it never actually, there's no dialogue in which any of the characters are interested in like looking inward and like analyzing why they do these things. But the reason why I think it's so interesting that that conversation is cut short is not because I think that girl who was like admonishing them and judging them, I don't think that's necessarily the best feminist critique to have of sex work. I don't think it is necessarily disempowering for a woman to try to capitalize off of her sexuality and her body, because if you live in a patriarchal society, you're going to be sexualized regardless. So if you're already a woman who's a very sexual being and you're confident in your sexuality and you own that, and you don't have any moral qualms with doing that, that is well within your right. And I think that has like a place in this discussion. But nobody there brings that up because Sam Levinson is not a feminist and he's not interested in showing how complicated this issue can be. And instead, he just like has this kind of like puritanical point of view that's briefly interjected into the conversation and then quickly dismissed before he goes on to the next highly, you know, disturbing scene that's only there for shock value. Like, your watching experience of Euphoria is genuinely just like disturbing scene after disturbing scene, shock value after shock value, with like no character development. And it's like horrendous. There's a scene of like, there's this girl, she has the really big lips, I forgot her name, but Faye, and she's kind of portrayed as like the poor white girl kind of archetype character, and she's also selling drugs or helping to make drugs, and she's like in with this kind of like white trash type like selling drugs family, and she's dating like, or at least having sex with like a neo-Nazi, and there's like a swastika like hanging on his bedroom door or whatever. And so there's that sex scene, and then it abruptly cuts to like a pig shitting, like it's just like totally just like, it's just not a good watching experience, and you're just like, whoa. And it's like, for me, the only enjoyable scene is like, perhaps as a woman with some queer tendencies, was the potential between Angel and, oh gosh, I forgot her name. Is it Rue? I don't even know. Zendaya's character, where it's like they have sex in their car, and it's actually nice to see because it's two women actually owning their sexuality outside of the male gaze, and it's the only moment in which there's some female control over what's happening that isn't done solely for the male gaze in an uncritical way. Because even Zendaya's character in this, she's still indebted to these men because they practically saved her life from the monotone character. I forgot her name, but she basically owns her because of all the debt that she's gotten herself into from stuff that she did in high school. And so basically she is still owned and controlled by men, even though she's not in sex work like everybody else is. And I don't know, I think Sam Levinson is a disgusting human being, and despite his very skilled artistry, he's like, it would be so much more meaningful and fun if like he offered a perspective that wasn't just merely interested in showing awful things for the sake of showing awful things. And so Like, for example, like, I think a really interesting storyline would be if, like, Rue and Angel, like, ran away from, like, the strip club and all those dudes and just, like, you know, ran like hell and, like, had, like, a beautiful, like, whirlwind romance, or, like, reconnecting with Jules, or, like, which does happen, but, like, that would have been, like, there could have been a love triangle between, like, Angel, Jules, and, like, Rue or whatever, but that never happens because I guess that would be too intriguing and too entertaining, and that would require too much imagination, and that would also require giving your female characters, like, complexity and character development, and he's just not interested in portraying that, so clearly that's never gonna happen. And so, yeah, also I would argue the development, how their friendship, Maddie and Cassie's friendship develops, is also very disturbing, because clearly, like, Maddie, she's kind of like pimping out Cassie after the failure of their marriage, and it's kind of like, it's like portrayed as female empowerment when in reality it's very degrading and manipulative, because it's very clear from the outset, like that scene, excuse me, when they reunite next to the pool, like, Cassie's very successful in, like, the OnlyFans industry, but she's successful because she will do anything. She'll put on a pair of diapers if need be, she'll dress up as a puppy if need be, she'll do whatever it takes to get viewers, and that's what initially gets her career started in OnlyFans. However, it's, like, kind of reaching a plateau point, and so she, like, reaches out to Maddie, or Maddie reaches out to Cassie in order to take her to that next level in her career, in order to make her more professional as a sex worker. And Maddie has been working in this industry, kind of like managing other girls, and so she kind of knows how to navigate this, how to take really classy but also very erotic, like, photo shoots and stuff like that. Like, she kind of is going to take Maddie to that next level in her career. That's also going to give her, I guess, some freedom from Nate and, like, stuff like that, but it's not as empowering as it's made out to be, because it's very clear from the outset that Cassie doesn't have a sense of self, and Maddie is probably clearly hurt from the betrayal of, like, Cassie kind of stealing Nate from her, and so there's some of that residual resentment that's left over, and I find their relationship to be very sadistic, because Maddie is taking advantage of the fact that Cassie doesn't have a core sense of self yet, and is using that to enrich herself. I mean, yes, technically Cassie is making money from the arrangement as well, but Maddie is as well, and there's kind of like this sick satisfaction in knowing that your former high school best friend who, like, stole your boyfriend from you and got married to him, their marriage has failed and you're pimping her out. Like, I find their relationship to be, there's like a power imbalance in their friendship, and I feel like Maddie has kind of like a sadistic edge to her, and I feel like Cassie doesn't have a sense of self yet, and and I just think that's really, and it's very clear to Cassie, it's very obvious to Cassie, it's very obvious to Maddie that Cassie doesn't have, like, a stable sense of self or a solid sense of self, and she takes advantage of that. And I think that's not love or friendship or female empowerment or anything. It's like, yes, female friendships are, like, highly complicated and complex, but this is just straight up, like, toxic, awful behavior between two women, and there's, like, I don't want to say it's like a friendship. It's not a friendship. It's like, I have no idea what you would even call that dynamic. It's just like, it's just kind of just really hard to watch. And so it kind of just is like, everything is being, like, the male gaze is the center of, like, the Sam Levinson universe, and it's just, like, terrible. Yeah.